just want to send you a huge good luck for tomorrow. We're sorry we can't be there in person, but we're so proud of everything you've achieved and the millions you've inspired here and around the world. So go out there tomorrow and really enjoy yourselves.
Well, I'm not sure what I'm able to bring. It's what all these very brave ladies tell me.
June 13th, 2026. Buckingham Palace. The sound of hooves on stone. The sound of a nation cheering for its monarch on his official birthday. Trooping the colour, one of the oldest ceremonies in Britain, unfolding exactly as it has for centuries. And in the middle of all that noise, all that tradition, all that spectacle, a small girl wore something on her wrist that almost nobody noticed. It was not a crown. It was not a headline. It was a bracelet. She did not know the cameras would catch it. She was 11 years old, sitting in a carriage, waving at a crowd of thousands who had come to see a king. Nobody was looking at her wrist. But some things do not need to be looked at right away. Some things wait. 3 strands of pearls, small enough to disappear in a photograph if you were not looking closely. But it was not just any bracelet. It was her grandmother's. A grandmother she never met. Hi viewers, have you ever kept something that belonged to someone you lost, just to feel close to them again? Tell me in the comments, yes or no.
No, I like her to be invisible. I just don't think they've got a role to play in today's modern society, really. They're just privileged.
Yeah, I just don't see what she offers, really. I think I haven't done enough research in it to know, but I would say no.
Her name was Princess Diana. The world called her the People's Princess. And nearly 30 years after her death, her memory was still riding in that carriage, on the wrist of a child who carries her name. If you have not subscribed yet, now is the moment. Because what happened next, across from that carriage seat, is the kind of detail that royal watchers wait years to catch. And you are about to see exactly what it meant. Because Charlotte was not wearing that bracelet alone. Right across from her, in the very same carriage, sat her mother, Kate. And on Kate's wrist was the original. The real one. Diana's own piece, made decades earlier by a British jeweller named Nigel Milne. 2 wrists. 1 bloodline. 1 quiet, unspoken tribute passing between 3 generations in front of a crowd that had no idea what it was watching. This story is not about a scandal. It is not about an outburst, or a feud, or a fight over jewelry behind closed doors. It is about something smaller. And somehow, something bigger. It is about what it means to carry someone forward after they are gone. Stay with me. Because to understand what that bracelet really meant, on that wrist, in that carriage, on that day, you first have to understand the woman it belonged to. And what she left behind. There is another piece, easy to miss if you are only looking for the bracelet. A pair of earrings. Pearl and diamond. Made by a jeweller named Collingwood in 1981. The same year Diana became a princess. Sources close to royal jewelry historians believe the earrings were among the pieces gifted to Diana around the time of her wedding, a small addition to a year that changed her life completely. They were never the loudest piece in her collection. Not the tiara. Not the sapphire ring everyone remembers. But look at when Kate chooses to wear them. Not at galas. Not at glittering evening receptions. At Trooping the Colour. And at Remembrance Day. The 2 most solemn, most ceremonial dates on the royal calendar. One a celebration of a living king. The other, a tribute to the dead. Pause on that for a second. Because a woman does not choose her jewelry at random for a ceremony broadcast to millions. Every piece is decided weeks in advance. Considered. Approved. Which means when the same earrings appear year after year, at the same 2 occasions, it stops looking like a coincidence. It starts looking like a ritual. A quiet appointment Kate keeps with a woman who has been gone for almost 30 years, twice every year, without fail. Here's a question worth sitting with. Do you have a ritual like that? Something small you do, every year, on the same day, just to remember someone? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one.
If you look at the coronation footage as the King and Queen leave the thrones and head for the exit of Westminster Abbey on the coronation Saturday. You'll see that everyone bows and curtsies to the King, and no one moves a limb, a muscle, when Camilla passes.
Because if the bracelet was the moment everyone finally noticed, the earrings are the proof that this was never a single afternoon. It was a pattern. Built quietly, twice a year, for longer than most people realized. The bracelet had a beginning of its own. A story before Diana ever touched it. In 1988, a British jeweller named Nigel Milne sat down with his wife, Cherry, to design something new. Something meant to raise money, not just to be worn. It was part of a special collection, created to support a charity called Birthright, an organization that helped mothers and babies across Britain at some of the most vulnerable moments a family can face. Diana had been named patron of that charity 4 years earlier, in 1984. So when Nigel and Cherry Milne finished their design, 3 strands of pearls, woven with diamonds, it was not just jewelry. It was a cause. A quiet promise, stitched into pearl and thread. And Diana wore it like she meant it. Ask yourself something for a moment. How many people do you know who wear their causes, not just talk about them? Through 1989, that bracelet appeared again and again in Diana's public life. At a Birthright charity event where the piece had started. At a performance of the Masked Ball at the London Coliseum, where cameras caught her laughing, at ease, herself. But one night outshined them all. Hong Kong. 1989, a state banquet, the kind of event where every detail is remembered for decades. Diana arrived wearing a white gown by her favorite designer, Catherine Walker. A dress that would later become known simply as the Elvis dress, embroidered from collar to hem with 28,600 pearls. On her head, the Queen Mary lover's knot tiara, one of the most photographed pieces in royal history. And on her wrist, quietly, almost easy to miss beside all that sparkle, the 3-strand pearl bracelet made by a jeweler and his wife for a charity that helped mothers hold their babies for the first time. It became one of the most iconic images of her entire public life. Nobody in that room that night could have imagined where that bracelet would end up decades later. Riding through the streets of London. On a child's wrist. In a carriage. On a summer morning in 2026. If a piece of jewelry can carry a mother's love halfway around the world and back again, 3 generations later, maybe nothing we hold onto is ever really lost. Before we continue, if this story is the kind you want more of, subscribe now. Because what happened to that bracelet after Diana died, who it went to, and how it finally found its way onto 2 wrists at once, is a story of its own. To understand the bracelet, you have to understand the woman who wore it first. Her name was Diana. Before the world called her a princess, she was a young woman named Diana Spencer, born into an aristocratic English family, raised in the quiet countryside of Norfolk. Nobody in that house could have known what she would become. In 1981, she married Prince Charles, heir to the British throne. The wedding was watched by hundreds of millions of people. Overnight, a shy 19-year-old became one of the most photographed women on earth. But Diana was never just a photograph. She had a way of making people feel seen. She knelt down to speak to children instead of standing over them. She held the hands of people others were afraid to touch. She walked through moments of real human suffering again and again, without flinching. That is why they called her the People's Princess. And somewhere in the middle of all that history, all that pressure, all those cameras, Diana wore a simple piece of jewelry that had nothing to do with crowns or titles. A 3-strand pearl bracelet, designed by a British jeweler named Nigel Milne. It was not the biggest piece she owned. It was not the most expensive. But it was hers. Here's a question for you. Do you own something small that reminds you of someone you loved and lost? Type yes or no in the comments right now.
They're just human beings, aren't they? They fell in love. I'm sure you could look at a number of things and say that's not quite right, and it doesn't fit the monarchy and so forth. But they're human. It just humanises them even more to me. So I have no problems with it.
Diana wore that bracelet during some of the most human moments of her public life. Not the grand ceremonies. The smaller ones. The ones where she was simply a mother, a woman, a person trying to hold her own life together while the world watched. In August of 1997, Diana died in a car accident in Paris. She was 36 years old. The grief that followed was unlike anything Britain had seen in generations. Flowers stretched for miles outside the palace gates. Strangers wept in the streets for a woman they had never met. And her sons, William and Harry, were left to carry her memory forward without her. Years passed. William married Kate Middleton. They had 3 children: George, Charlotte, Louis. Charlotte was given a middle name that made her connection to her grandmother permanent. Charlotte Elizabeth Diana. She would never meet the woman whose name she carried. But somehow, without ever choosing it, she would spend her whole life being compared to her. Before we go further, if this story is moving you even a little, hit subscribe now. Because the next part is where the past and the present finally meet. And it happens on the wrist of a woman named Kate. Kate Middleton never knew Diana personally. She met William years after his mother was gone. She stepped into a family still shaped by absence, still living inside a grief that never fully left the walls of the palace. And somewhere along the way, Kate made a quiet decision. She would not try to replace Diana. She would try to honor her instead. Diana died in August of 1997. In the days that followed, the palace faced a question that had never been written down anywhere. Not in law. Not in tradition. What happens to the belongings of a princess who is no longer a princess when she dies? Some of Diana's jewelry belonged to the crown. Pieces on loan, pieces that would return to the royal collection, never to be hers again, not really. But some pieces were different. Some pieces were truly hers. Purchased for her. Designed for her. Worn because she chose to wear them, not because duty demanded it. The pearl bracelet was one of those pieces. It passed to her eldest son. William was only 15 years old when his mother died. Old enough to understand the size of the loss. Too young to fully carry it. For years, that bracelet sat quietly among the things he kept from her. Not displayed. Not spoken about publicly. Simply kept. Here's something worth sitting with for a second. Grief does not always look like tears. Sometimes it looks like a small box, untouched, in the back of a drawer for years. Then William met Kate Middleton. They were students at university when they first crossed paths. Nobody watching them back then could have known that one day, the whole world would be studying the way she wore her mother-in-law's jewelry, searching for meaning in every pearl and every stone. William and Kate married in 2011. And in the proposal itself, before the wedding, before any of it, William had already made his first decision about his mother's legacy. He gave Kate his mother's engagement ring. The same sapphire and diamond ring Diana wore the day she agreed to marry his father. It was not the only piece that would eventually follow. Over the years, quietly, without fanfare, more of Diana's jewelry found its way to Kate. The pearl drop earrings. An emerald and diamond choker, once worn as a headband on a 1985 tour of Australia, now reimagined by Kate as a necklace. Even, royal watchers believe, a sapphire necklace, reworked into a pendant Kate wore while welcoming a foreign leader to Buckingham Palace. And at some point, the 3-strand pearl bracelet, the one from 1988, the one built for birthright, the one worn with the Elvis dress in Hong Kong, joined that same collection. William gave it to her. Not as a museum piece. Not as jewelry to be locked away and preserved behind glass. As something to be worn. Lived in. Carried forward. Quick question. If someone gave you an object that once belonged to a person they loved and lost, would you wear it in public or keep it hidden away where only you could see it? Tell me which one, in the comments. Kate chose to wear it. Again and again. Royal watchers first identified the bracelet on her wrist in 2017, during a reception in Berlin. It was a small detail, easy to miss if you were not looking closely. But the people who study these things for a living noticed immediately. 3 strands. The exact design. The exact jeweler. From that point forward, the bracelet became one of Kate's most meaningful, most recognizable tributes. She wore it to a Buckingham Palace garden party. She wore it to the wedding of Peter Phillips and Harriet Spurling on June 6, 2026, just 1 week before the moment this story is really about. 1 week later, she would wear it again. This time, in a royal carriage, on the way back from Horse Guards Parade. And this time, she would not be wearing it alone. If this story has meant something to you so far, this is the moment to subscribe. Because everything that came before, the jeweler, the charity, the Elvis dress, the ring, the years of quiet tribute, all of it was leading to a single afternoon. An afternoon where a granddaughter would wear her grandmother's memory in public for the very first time. And once you see what happened next, you will understand exactly why royal watchers could not stop talking about it. Over the years, that choice became visible in small, deliberate ways. A blue sapphire engagement ring, once Diana's own, placed on Kate's hand. A pair of earrings. A brooch. And that pearl bracelet, the one Diana wore decades earlier, eventually finding its way onto Kate's wrist. Royal watchers first noticed it in 2017, during a reception in Berlin. A small detail. 3 strands of pearls. Recognized instantly by people who had spent years studying photographs of Diana. It was never announced. Never explained in a formal statement. It did not need to be. Some tributes are louder when nobody says anything at all. Quick question for you before we go further. If you have ever worn something that belonged to someone you lost, just to feel a little closer to them, drop a single word in the comments right now. Just one word. In recent years, Kate's own story became one of quiet strength. In early 2024, she was diagnosed with cancer. She stepped back from public life to focus on treatment. For months, the world waited, uncertain, worried, watching for any sign of how she was doing. She returned slowly. Carefully. On her own terms. And through it all, in the moments when she did step back into public view, she often reached for the same pieces that connected her to Diana. As if to say, even now, I am still carrying her with me. If this part of the story has moved you even slightly, this is the moment to hit that subscribe button. Because everything you have just learned, Diana's bracelet, Kate's quiet tribute, all of it, was about to collide with a single afternoon in June. An afternoon that belonged to a king. But that, without anyone planning it, would end up belonging to 3 generations of women instead. June 13, 2026. The sun was out over London. Crowds had gathered along the parade route since early morning, some of them camping out overnight just to secure a place along the barriers. This was Trooping the Colour. King Charles's official birthday parade. A ceremony that has played out in almost exactly the same way for more than 250 years. Soldiers in red uniforms. Horses moving in perfect formation. Marching bands filling the air with sound. And at the center of it, the royal family, riding out from Buckingham Palace toward Horse Guards Parade, exactly as tradition demanded. To understand why one small bracelet mattered so much, you first have to understand the scale of the day it appeared on. Trooping the Colour is not a small gathering. It is one of the largest ceremonial displays in the world, repeated every single year, almost unchanged, since the 1700s. More than 1,500 military personnel took part that morning. 200 horses moved in formation through the streets of London. 400 musicians, marching in perfect step, filled the air with sound that could be heard blocks away. Crowds had gathered along the parade route since early morning. Some had been there since before sunrise, holding their positions along the barriers, just to catch a glimpse of the family as they passed. This was not a private moment. This was about as public as royal life gets. King Charles rode out from Buckingham Palace wearing the red ceremonial uniform of the Grenadier Guards. Beside him, Queen Camilla, dressed to match, her own red gown designed to echo the very same regiment. Prince William did not ride in a carriage that day. He rode on horseback in the full ceremonial dress of the Welsh Guards, just as tradition required of him. And in one of the carriages behind them, Kate sat with her 3 children. George, 12 years old now, growing taller every year the cameras catch him. Louis, 8, still young enough to occasionally forget he is supposed to sit still. And Charlotte, 11, dressed in white, with soft blue detailing stitched along the fabric of her dress. Here is a detail most people watching at home never caught. Kate's own outfit that day was not chosen at random. The year before, at this exact same event, Kate had worn a powder blue look that closely echoed an outfit Princess Diana wore to Trooping the Colour back in 1988. A blue-green ensemble, trimmed in white at the lapels. Royal observers noticed the resemblance almost immediately. It was not an isolated tribute. It was part of a pattern. Pause on that for a second. Because a pattern is different from a coincidence. A coincidence happens once. A pattern means someone, again and again, year after year, is making a choice. As the carriage carrying Kate and her children made its way back toward Buckingham Palace after the ceremony at Horse Guards Parade, the procession moved slowly enough for cameras along the route to capture nearly every detail. That is when it happened. Kate lifted her hand to wave. And on her wrist, catching the light, was the bracelet. 3 strands of pearls. Diana's own piece, the one made in 1988, the one worn in Hong Kong, the one William had once kept quietly among his mother's things before finally giving it to his wife. And directly across from her, Charlotte lifted her own hand to wave at the crowd. On her wrist, a smaller version. Nearly identical. 3 strands of pearls, sized for an 11-year-old, catching the exact same light. If you are just now noticing how many small details had to line up for this single moment to happen, you are not alone. Royal watchers spent days afterward going through the footage frame by frame, just to be certain of what they were seeing.
From being a vilified royal mistress to the woman who will now shape the future of the monarchy, Camilla Parker Bowles has come a long way in the eyes of her nation and the world.
Know that as much as we have now the reign of King Charles and Queen Consort Camilla, the future is William and Kate.
And their children as well.
No palace statement introduced it. No formal announcement explained it. It was simply there, worn by a mother and a daughter, in front of a crowd of thousands who had come to see a king and never noticed they were also watching a tribute to a princess. The parade continued exactly as it always does. The family returned to Buckingham Palace. They stepped out onto the same balcony generations of royals have stood on before them, watching a Royal Air Force flypast streak across the London sky. To everyone in that crowd, it looked like tradition. Unchanging, exactly as it has always been. But if you knew what to look for, on 2 wrists, in one carriage, something quieter was happening. Something that had nothing to do with kings, or crowns, or flypasts. If this story is holding your attention the way it held mine while I researched it, like this video right now, it genuinely helps more people find stories like this one. Because the moment on that carriage was not the end of the story. It was the beginning of a conversation, one that spread through royal commentary for days afterward, about what that bracelet really meant, and why, out of everything a family could choose to pass down, this quiet piece of pearl and thread became the one that mattered most. King Charles wore the red uniform of the Grenadier Guards. Queen Camilla wore red as well, a deliberate echo of the same regiment. Prince William rode on horseback in full ceremonial dress. And in one of the carriages, Kate sat with her 3 children. George, now 12. Louis, 8. And Charlotte, 11 years old, dressed in white with soft blue details stitched along the fabric. From a distance, it looked like nothing unusual. A family, waving to a crowd that adored them. But look closer. On Kate's wrist, Diana's pearl bracelet. The original. The one made by Nigel Milne, decades earlier, for a woman who never lived to see her granddaughter wear anything at all. And on Charlotte's wrist, a smaller version. Nearly identical. 3 strands of pearls, catching the light every time she lifted her hand to wave. Nobody had announced it. No palace statement. No formal explanation. It was simply there, worn by two people sitting across from each other in front of a crowd that had no idea what they were witnessing. The bracelet was not the only thread connecting that carriage to a woman who had been gone for almost 30 years. Look again. Look at what Kate was actually wearing that day. A powder blue ensemble, chosen with the same care as everything else she wears in public. Soft in color. Deliberate in shape. Now go back. Back to 1988. Back to a trooping the color that took place decades before Charlotte was ever born, before Kate had ever met William, before any of this was even possible to imagine. Princess Diana stood at that same event, in that same tradition, wearing a blue-green ensemble trimmed in white at the lapels. Two women. Two outfits. 38 years apart. And when royal observers laid the photographs side by side, the resemblance was not subtle. It was not something you had to squint to find. Here is the part that stops people once they really sit with it. This was not the first time Kate had done this. The year before, at this exact same event, she wore a similar powder blue look, echoing that same 1988 appearance. Once could be an accident. Twice is not. Ask yourself this. If you wanted to tell someone you were thinking of them, but you could never simply say it out loud, what would you do instead? You might choose their favorite color. You might recreate a moment they once lived, quietly, on your own terms, in your own way. That is what a growing number of royal commentators believe Kate has been doing, year after year, appearance after appearance. It is worth understanding why this matters so much within royal circles. Clothing, at events like Trooping the Colour, is rarely accidental. Every stitch, every colour, every silhouette is chosen weeks in advance, discussed, planned, considered from every angle. Nothing appears on a royal balcony by chance. Which means when a resemblance like this shows up twice in consecutive years, it is not being read as coincidence. It is being read as a message. So think about what was actually happening in that carriage on June 13th, 2026. It was not one tribute to Princess Diana that day. It was two, laid on top of each other, happening at the exact same moment. On one layer, a color, a silhouette, an echo of a woman standing in almost that exact spot 38 years earlier. On another layer, a bracelet, pearls designed in 1988. Worn in Hong Kong. Passed from a son who lost his mother, to a wife who never met her, to a daughter who carries her name. Two tributes. One woman. Neither one announced. Neither one explained. Both of them hiding in plain sight, in front of a crowd of thousands and a nation of cameras, none of whom were told what they were looking at. Here is the question worth asking before we move forward. How many more of these moments have already happened, in past years, at past events, that nobody has ever noticed until now? If a story like that interests you, that is exactly the kind of thing this channel exists to uncover. Subscribe now, so you do not miss it when we find the next one. Because once you understand how deliberately this family communicates without ever saying a word, you start to realize something. Every photograph you have ever seen of them may be telling you more than you think. Pause here for a second. Because this is the part that quietly stops people in their tracks once they notice it. A grandmother who died before her granddaughter was born. A mother who spent years learning how to carry that memory forward. And a child, only 11 years old, wearing a small piece of a woman she never met, without needing anyone to explain why it mattered. If you have made it this far into the story, you already understand why this small detail matters more than any headline ever could. So do one thing for me right now. Like this video. It costs nothing, and it tells me you want more stories like this one. Royal commentators who study these events closely noticed it almost immediately. In royal circles, accessories at ceremonial occasions are rarely accidental. They are read as signals. Quiet, intentional messages passed down without a single word spoken in public. Grandmother. Mother. Daughter. 3 generations. One thread, tying them together, visible only to the people who knew exactly what they were looking at. So what does it actually mean, a child wearing her grandmother's pearls in a carriage full of thousands of people who never noticed? It means memory does not need permission to survive. Royal historians have spent years trying to answer a question that sounds simple, but is not. Why does Kate connect with people the way she does? Christopher Anderson has spent much of his career studying this family. He has written extensively about Kate, about her rise within the monarchy, about the strange, quiet way she has shaped it simply by being herself. According to Anderson, something shifted the moment Kate and William exchanged vows back in 2011. Not overnight. Not with a single dramatic gesture. But slowly, steadily, in a way that built over more than a decade. He has argued that no one in recent royal history has influenced the monarchy quite the way Kate has. Think about that claim for a second. This is a family with centuries of history behind it. Kings. Queens. War heroes. Reformers. And yet, according to people who study this institution for a living, one woman, who was never born into any of it, has left one of the deepest marks on it in living memory. Why? Anderson's answer keeps coming back to one word. Connection. He has pointed out that comparisons between Kate and Diana were inevitable from the very beginning. Both women shared something difficult to manufacture and impossible to fake. Both had a way of making the people in front of them feel like the only person in the room. Charisma, on its own, is common enough. Compassion is common enough. But according to Anderson, the rare thing, the thing that made both Diana and Kate stand apart, was the ability to hold both at once, and to let the public actually feel it, not just witness it from a distance. Here is something worth pausing on. Kate was already building that reputation long before June of 2026. Long before the bracelet, long before the carriage, long before any of this story began. And then, in early 2024, everything paused. Her cancer diagnosis pulled her out of public life for months, at a moment when her role within the family had never felt more essential. According to Anderson, that period did not diminish her impact. If anything, the world watched her return with a kind of attention usually reserved only for the most significant royal moments. So when she finally stepped back into the spotlight, piece by piece, appearance by appearance, every choice she made carried more weight than it once did. Which brings the story back to a single wrist, in a single carriage, on a single June afternoon. Because if Anderson is right, if Kate's true gift has always been her ability to connect, then the bracelet was never just jewelry. It was the clearest possible expression of exactly that gift. A silent tribute. A shared history. A message sent to millions of people without a single word spoken out loud. And now, for the first time, that same gift was being passed to the next generation. Not taught. Not explained. Simply worn on a child's wrist in front of the world. If understanding the deeper meaning behind royal moments like this is something you enjoy, make sure you are subscribed. Because the emotional thread running through this family runs deeper than most people realize, and there is far more of it still to uncover. Diana has been gone for nearly 30 years now. She never watched her granddaughter grow up. She never saw Charlotte's first steps, her first day of school, her first royal appearance. And yet, somehow, she was there. On a wrist. In a carriage. On a June afternoon in 2026. That is the strange, quiet power of the people we lose. They do not disappear completely. They live on in the small things the people who loved them choose to carry forward. A bracelet. A name. A way of kneeling down to look a child in the eye. The bracelet was never really the whole story. It was simply the piece the cameras happened to catch that day. Because if you look closer at Kate's jewelry box, you start to realize something. This has been happening for years. Quietly. Piece by piece. Long before that carriage ever rolled past Buckingham Palace. There are the pearl drop earrings, another piece that once belonged to Diana, worn by Kate on more than one occasion, often paired with the very same bracelet. There is the emerald and diamond choker, a piece with its own strange, layered history. Diana first wore it as a necklace in the early 1980s. Then, in 1985, on a tour of Australia, she did something unexpected. She wore it as a headband instead, turning a formal jewel into something almost playful, something only Diana could have pulled off. She wore that same choker again, as a necklace, on July 1st, 1997. Her 36th birthday. Her final birthday, at a gala at the Tate Gallery, only weeks before her death. Kate wore that same choker as a necklace at the Earthshot Prize Awards ceremony in 2022. Then there is the sapphire connection, perhaps the most quietly emotional thread of all. In 1981, Diana received a full sapphire suite as a wedding gift from the Saudi royal family. A necklace, earrings, a ring, and a bracelet, all designed to match the sapphire and diamond engagement ring Prince Charles had chosen for her, a ring he had controversially picked from a Gerrard's catalogue rather than commissioning something custom-made, breaking with royal tradition at the time. That ring became one of the most famous pieces of jewellery in the world. And in 2010, when William proposed to Kate, he did not choose a new ring. He chose his mother's. The same diamond-encrusted sapphire, the same 18-carat white gold, placed on Kate's hand as the beginning of their life together. Royal watchers believe Kate later had one of Diana's original sapphire necklaces reworked into a smaller pendant. She wore it in 2020, welcoming Ukraine's President Zelensky to Buckingham Palace. She wore it again in 2022, at the Commonwealth Day service. None of this was ever formally confirmed by the palace. None of it needed to be. Here is what all of this adds up to. Not one tribute. Not two. An entire collection, worn deliberately, again and again, across more than a decade, each piece carrying its own small fragment of a woman who has been gone since 1997. Ask yourself something. If you inherited a box of jewelry from someone you loved, would you lock it away to keep it safe? Or would you wear it, out in the world, exactly the way they did, so their memory kept moving instead of standing still? Kate chose the second option. Every single time. And now, for the first time, a new name has entered that pattern. Charlotte. An 11-year-old girl who never touched the original ring, or the original choker, or the original bracelet in its first form, but who wore a version of it anyway, on her own wrist, in her own moment, in front of her own crowd. If this pattern, stretching across jewelry, across decades, across 3 generations of women who never all stood in the same room together, is the kind of story that fascinates you, make sure you are subscribed. Because patterns like this rarely stop. And when the next piece surfaces, you will want to be the first to understand exactly what it means. Charlotte will grow up carrying more than jewelry. She carries a name, Diana, given to her at birth. She carries a resemblance people cannot stop pointing out. And now, she carries a piece of pearl and thread that once sat on her grandmother's wrist, before either of them ever knew the other existed. Westminster Abbey. The funeral of Queen Elizabeth II. The whole world was watching that day. Not for a parade. Not for a celebration. For a goodbye. Inside that solemn procession, walking behind a coffin that carried the longest reigning monarch in British history, was a 7-year-old girl. Princess Charlotte. She wore a black coat, trimmed with a sharp zigzag pattern down the front. A matching black hat, the very first time in her life she had worn one to an event of this size. She stood still. She stood quiet. In a moment far too heavy for most adults to fully process, let alone a child. But pinned to her coat, small enough that most cameras almost missed it, was a brooch. Shaped like a horseshoe. Set with diamonds. Pause here for a moment. Because that brooch was not inherited after a death, the way so many royal pieces are. It was not passed down quietly through a will, or handed over in private, years after someone was already gone. The Queen gave it to Charlotte herself, while she was still alive. Kensington Palace later confirmed it directly. A gift from a great-grandmother to a great-granddaughter, chosen for a reason that had nothing to do with royal duty, and everything to do with something far more personal. Horses. Queen Elizabeth loved horses for her entire life. It was not a passing interest. It was a devotion that followed her from childhood all the way to old age. She rode for decades. She bred champions. Even in her final years, when so much of the world had slowed her down, horses remained one of the few things that never did. And somewhere along the way, she noticed something in her great-granddaughter. A spark. The same pull toward horses that had shaped so much of her own life. So she gave her a gift. A small horseshoe made of diamonds, meant to be worn. Ask yourself something. If you knew, without question, that someone truly saw you, understood exactly what made you who you are, and gave you something specifically because of it, how would you carry that gift for the rest of your life? Charlotte was 7 years old when she wore that brooch to say goodbye to the woman who gave it to her. She stood beside her older brother George, then 9, both of them walking behind a coffin that carried more history than either of them could possibly understand at that age. And she was not the only one carrying a hidden tribute that day. Kate wore a choker with a history stretching back decades before either of her children were born. A necklace whose design had been inspired by Diana herself. A piece the Queen once loaned to Diana for a state visit to the Netherlands, all the way back in 1982. A piece the Queen later loaned to Kate for the very first time in 2017. In that one funeral procession, on that one impossibly heavy day, 2 separate tributes were quietly happening at once. A daughter honoring a grandmother she had lost. A daughter-in-law wearing a necklace tied to both a queen and a princess who had both already passed. Grief, carried in silence, on 2 different people, in 2 different pieces of jewelry, nobody outside the family fully aware of what they were witnessing. Here is the detail that makes this story impossible to forget once you know it. Charlotte did not put that brooch away after the funeral. She did not treat it as something too painful to wear again. 3 years later, in 2025, she wore the exact same horseshoe brooch to Trooping the Colour. Not a funeral this time. A celebration. The King's birthday. Bright colours. Cheering crowds. Music filling the air. The same brooch that once carried grief now carried something else entirely. Continuity. Memory, transformed from mourning into celebration, without ever changing hands, without ever leaving her side. That same year, at that same event, Kate and Charlotte coordinated in matching aqua blue looks. And Kate's coat dress that day was designed by Catherine Walker. The very same designer behind Diana's most iconic gowns. The very same designer behind the Elvis dress worn in Hong Kong decades earlier. 2 more threads, quietly tied together, in a look most people watching would simply call beautiful, never realizing how many generations it was actually honoring at once. If you did not expect this story to circle back the way it just did, you are exactly the kind of viewer this channel is made for. Subscribe now, because this family does not just wear jewelry. They tell an entire history through it, one quiet appearance at a time. And once you start noticing it, you will never be able to look away again. One more question before we close this story. If someone you loved could see who you have become today, do you think they would be proud? Just answer yes or no in the comments. I read every single one. This is not a story about scandal. It never was. It is a story about what survives, quietly, when everyone stops paying attention. For days after Trooping the Colour. For days after a bracelet on a child's wrist quietly rewrote what an entire nation thought it was watching. And the story was not finished. Not even close. Because on June 17, 2026, Kate stepped out of a horse-drawn carriage at Ascot Racecourse in Berkshire, and on her wrist, catching the afternoon light exactly the way it had 4 days earlier, was the same 3-strand pearl bracelet. Diana's bracelet. Again. If you thought that carriage moment was a single afternoon, a single tribute, a single quiet gesture that came and went, sit with this for a second. It was not. It was the beginning of something Kate was about to repeat, in a completely different setting, in front of a completely different crowd, only days later. Royal Ascot is not Trooping the Colour. There are no soldiers marching in formation here. No military bands. No 250 years of unbroken ceremonial tradition unfolding street by street through London. Ascot is horses. Racing. Betting slips and champagne and hats so elaborate they make headlines of their own. It is Britain's most prestigious race meeting, founded by Queen Anne back in 1711, 300 years before anyone in that royal carriage was ever born. And yet, somehow, the same bracelet appeared there too. Here's a question worth asking yourself before we go further. If someone wears the same piece of jewelry twice in 1 week, in 2 totally different settings, do you think that is an accident? Or do you think, somewhere underneath it, there is a reason? Type your answer in the comments. Yes, it means something. Or no, you think it is just a coincidence. I want to know what you believe. To understand why this particular Ascot appearance mattered so much, you have to understand what Kate was walking back into. This was her first Royal Ascot in 2 years. 2 years. She had not attended in 2024. She had not attended in 2025 either. Sources close to the royal household say she was expected to appear the year before, only to withdraw at the last moment, quietly, without explanation, to protect a recovery still underway. Because in January of 2024, Kate underwent what the palace would only ever describe as major abdominal surgery. 2 months later, in March of 2024, she appeared in a video, filmed quietly, released without warning, and told the world what that surgery had found. Cancer had been present. She did not disclose which type. She never has, not publicly, not once, in all the months and years since. What she did share was this: that she needed time. That she needed privacy. That the road back to public life would not be immediate. By September of 2024, she confirmed she had completed her course of chemotherapy. Pause on that timeline for a second, because it matters. January. Surgery. March. A diagnosis revealed to the world. September. The end of treatment. And then, silence, for almost 2 full years, while Kate rebuilt whatever needed rebuilding, out of view, on her own terms, the same way she has approached nearly everything since she first married into this family. So when she finally stepped back into that horse-drawn carriage at Ascot in June of 2026, it was not simply a fashion moment. It was not simply a woman choosing a nice dress for a summer race meeting. It was a return. The kind of return people usually only get to make once. If a story like this is the kind that stays with you, this is the moment to subscribe. Because what Kate chose to wear on that return says more about her, and about the 2 women she carries with her, than almost anything else in this entire story. She wore a dress the color of marigolds. A bright, unmistakable yellow, custom made by the designer Roxander. Not a new piece. She had worn a version of this same dress before, on a royal tour of Jamaica back in 2022, and again that same year at Wimbledon. The Princess of Wales wearing an old favorite is nothing new. Royal watchers have noted for years that she treats her wardrobe less like a rotating stage prop and more like a closet she actually lives in, worn, loved, brought back again and again rather than discarded after a single appearance. But it was not the dress that caught the attention of people who study this family closely. It was what she paired it with. On her wrist, the pearl bracelet. Diana's own piece, the one from 1988, the one built for a charity, the one worn in Hong Kong, the one already sitting at the center of everything this story has been building toward. And in her ears, something new to this particular thread. A pair of diamond chandelier earrings, reportedly belonging to someone else entirely. Queen Elizabeth II. Here is the detail worth pausing on. In one single outfit, on one single afternoon, Kate was not carrying the memory of one woman. She was carrying 2. Ask yourself this. If you had lost 2 people who shaped your family, 2 women from 2 different generations, and you had the chance to honor both of them at once, quietly, without a single word of explanation, would you take it? Kate did. And it did not stop at the earrings. Because yellow itself, the exact color she chose to wear that day, carries its own quiet history within this family. Royal photographers and historians have pointed out that Queen Elizabeth herself was photographed in yellow at Ascot, not once, but in both 2017 and 2018. Sunny, unmistakable, the kind of colour choice that gets remembered precisely because so few royals are bold enough to wear it. So when Kate arrived in marigold yellow, on her first Ascot appearance in 2 years, wearing Queen Elizabeth's earrings and Diana's bracelet at the very same time, insiders and jewellery historians alike began asking the same question all over again. Was this simply a beautiful outfit? Or was it something closer to an unspoken statement? A woman standing at the centre of a family shaped by loss, choosing, deliberately, to make sure neither of the women she lost was ever fully absent from the moments that mattered most. Nobody at the palace confirmed it. Nobody ever does. But by now, if you have followed this story from the very beginning, from a jeweller named Nigel Milne sitting down with his wife in 1988, all the way to a marigold dress at Ascot in the summer of 2026, you already know something important about this family. They do not explain themselves. They simply dress the part, and let the rest of us spend years trying to catch up. If this chapter surprised you even a little, hit that like button right now. Because it costs you nothing, and it tells this channel that stories like this one, the quiet ones, the ones hiding behind a hat and a rewear and a pair of earrings, deserve to keep being told. Because here is what nobody expected. The bracelet was never a single afternoon. It was a pattern that was still being written, for days later, in a completely different corner of England, in front of a completely different crowd. And if it happened twice in 1 week, the only real question left is this. How many more times has it already happened, quietly, in moments nobody thought to connect, until right now? If this story reached you the way it reached me while researching it, subscribe now, so you do not miss what comes next. Because there is another royal tribute hiding in plain sight, one involving a brooch, a funeral, and a 9-year-old girl standing perfectly still in front of the entire world. And once you see it, you will never look at royal photographs the same way again.